Alright, how many here have ever gone bass fishing before in their entire life? Raise your hand. Alright, one. Now, for that time, have you ever caught more than 4 fish in that one trip?
No.
Alright. So if you're a beginner or a person who's returning to the hobby, it can be pretty overwhelming from the amount of information you receive from either pro fishermen or either from the internet. I had that same feeling years ago when I started becoming a bass fisherman, but as time went on and I went on more bass fishing trips, I learned that there are some basic information one needs to know in order to become an effective bass fisherman. Now, 2 of these factors that you need to know and to understand is the basic characteristics and behaviors of a largemouth bass, and the methods and techniques you need to know in order to catch them. So, before you put a line in the water, it's very important to know and understand what the largemouth bass is like. So, according to the FWC and the University of Florida, largemouth bass tend to have a dark green to light green coloration all around their backs, and a very large, sloping mouth that actually extends beyond where the eye is. They tend to be very solitary fish when it comes to hunting, but they sometimes, but occasionally, like to feed in schools and large lakes and such. Their habitats consist of ponds, lakes, swamps, reservoirs, and creeks and rivers. They usually like to hide underneath structures such as grass, rocks, piers, docks, sunken logs, or even low-hanging branches that are into the water. And their diet consists of small fish, crayfish, insects, frogs, salamanders, and surprisingly, small rodents and turtles. They typically feed throughout the entirety of the day, but they often like to feed during the late evening and the early morning. So, once you understand the characteristics and behaviors of a largemouth bass, it's important to know the different methods and techniques you need to know in order to catch them. So, from my experience of bass fishing for 3 years, there's one method and rig setup that I use that seems to be very consistent in wherever I go into catching largemouth bass. So what you need to get is, of course, a 6-foot medium to medium heavy fishing rod, spinning reel fishing rod combo like this, with 10-pound monofilament. Sometimes people like to use 8-pound monofilament, but I like to use 10-pound in case you're gonna be fishing near heavy vegetation. And the lure that I find to be the most effective in any situation is a green 5-inch worm like this. You guys can pass it around if you like. And the hook that I always use with it is a wide gap worm hook like this one. The size, you usually like to go for size 3 to 4 in order to get a little bit more variety of different sizes of largemouth. You can pass this around too. And that's essentially pretty much it. You can add a sinker to that rig setup if you want to get have the worm sink down further into the water. But I find that it's kind of unnecessary because the fish like to watch the worm slowly sink down in order to strike. So, now that we know the different behaviors and characteristics of largemouth bass, as well as a different method or technique that's very consistent at catching them, I hope that all of you will then become more effective as bass fishing. And I also hope and encourage everyone here to get into the sport and to learn the different types and techniques and lures that you use to catch largemouth bass. This is Nicholas Catalfamo. I hope all of you have a great day.
Thank you.